Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Chama. Oh, sorry. Narayanam Namaskritya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Nanam Chara Narotaram. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayan Mudiraet. Nastya Parashu Bhadreshu. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Tamasloke. Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Shishiko Nitayama Prashashiki Jai. Na tasya tattva grahanaya sakshat. Na tasya tattva grahanaya sakshat. Variyasir api vacha samasan. Variyasir api vacha samasan. Swapne niruktya grihamedi sokyam. Swapne niruktya grihamedi sokyam. Na yasya heya anumitam svayam syat. Na yasya heya anumitam svayam syat. Natasya tattva grahanaya sakshat. Variyasir api vacha samasan. Swapne niruktya grihamedi sokyam. Nayasya yaheyan numitam swayam syat. Natasya tattva grihanaya sakshat. Variyasir api vacha samasan. Swapne niruktya grihamedi sokyam. Nayasya heyan nimitam swayam syat. Natasya tattva grahanaya sakshat. Variyasir api vacha samasan. Swapne niruktya vigrihamedi sokyam. Nayasya heyan numatam swayam syat. Heyan numitam.
Natasya tattva grahanaya sakshat. Variyasya api vacha samasan. Swapne niruktya grihamedi sokyam. Nayasya heya nimitam swayam syat. Natasya tattva grahanaya sakshat. Variyasya api vacha samasan. Swapne niruktya grihamedi sokyam. Nayasya heya nimitam swayam syat. Natasya tattva grahanaya sakshat. Variyasya api vacha samasan. Swapne nirutya grihane sokya.
Please repeat. Na,
No,
not.
not.
Tasya,
Tasya,
of him.
of him.
A student studying the
The
Vedas.
student studying the Vedas.
Tattva grahanaya,
Tattva grahanaya.
for accepting the real purpose of Vedic knowledge.
For accepting the real purpose of Vedic knowledge.
Sakshat,
Sakshat,
directly.
directly.
Variyasi,
Variyasi,
very exalted.
very exalted.
Api,
Api,
although. Vacha, words of the Vedas. Samasan,
Samasan,
sufficiently became.
sufficiently became.
Swapne,
Swapne,
in a dream.
in a dream.
Niruktya,
Nirutya,
by example.
by example.
Grihamedi sokyam,
Grihane sokyam.
happiness within this material world.
Happiness within this material world.
Na,
Na,
not.
not.
Yasya,
Yasya,
of him.
of him.
Sorry, of him who.
Of him who.
Heya anumitam,
Heya animitam.
concluded to be inferior.
Concluded to be inferior.
Swayam,
Swayam,
automatically.
automatically.
Syat,
Syat,
become. Translation, purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. A dream becomes automatically known to a person as false and immaterial, and similarly one eventually realizes that material happiness in this life or the next, on this planet or a higher planet, is insignificant. When one realizes this, the Vedas, although an excellent source, are insufficient to bring about direct knowledge of the truth. In Bhagavad Gita 2.45, Krishna advised Arjuna to become transcendental to the material activities impelled by the three material modes of nature, Trigunya, Vishaya Veda, Nistrigunya Bhavarjana. The purpose of Vedic study is to transcend the activities of the three modes of material nature. Of course, in the material world, the mode of goodness is accepted as the best, and one can be promoted to the higher planetary systems by being on the Sattva Guna platform. However, that is not perfection. One must come to the conclusion that even the Sattva Guna platform is also not good. One may dream that he has become a king with a good family and wife and children, but immediately at the end of that dream, he comes to the conclusion that it is false. Similarly, all kinds of material happiness are undesirable for a person who wants spiritual salvation. If a person does not come to the conclusion that he has nothing to do with any kind of material happiness, he cannot come to the platform of understanding the absolute truth, or tattva gyan. Karmis, Gyanis and Yogis are after some material elevation. The Karmis work hard day and night for bodily comfort, and the Gyanis simply speculate about how to get out of the entanglement of karma and emerge into the Brahman effulgence. The Yogis are very much addicted to the acquisition of material perfection and magical powers. All of them are trying to be materially perfect, but a devotee very easily comes to the platform of nirguna in devotional service, and consequently for the devotee the results of karma, jnana and yoga become very insignificant. Therefore, only the devotee is on the platform of tattva gyan, not the others. Of course, the jnani's position is better than that of the kami, but that position is also insufficient. The jnani must actually become liberated, and after liberation, he may be situated in devotional service, mad bhaktim labhate param. Om Jnana Tamanantasya Kananchana Sharan Karyan Chakshanam Pinitam Bhajina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vanchikalpa Chubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bhayeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to practice speaking on the Bhagavatam. And by your blessings I'll be able to say something. So the material world has two functions. Does anyone know what they are?
One function is to enable the living entities to attempt
our material desires, and another function is to frustrate them in that attempt and to kind of propel them towards liberation and devotional service.
Thank you. Yeah, so this function is for the reformation of the soul back to its original position and sense gratification. So along with the creation came the Vedas for the purpose of that reformation, to elevate, to give the soul a chance to elevate himself through the modes of material nature to the to transcendence. So the Vedas is full of knowledge of all sorts of subject matter, from economics to politics, the arts, anything you can think of. It knows the science behind it. A lot of it has been lost, but with exposure to that, then there's the demigod worship and so on. In the West, we're not so familiar with these different types of worship and so on. But in the West, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, we were immediately exposed to Lord Chaitanya's mission and how he came to give the highest directly. But in the meantime, the tendency is there to identify with our body, and that we may think ourselves English, Scottish, female, male. I'm a family man, or I have business, and so on like this. But these are ultimately part of the dream, of a dream. This is like a dream becomes, like Prabhupada says in the translation, a dream becomes automatically known to a person as false and immaterial. So just as when we have a dream, so many things may take place, and but on waking we realize that it was a dream, but during the dream it was real. So this is the definition of something that's false in the Sastra, that if it's temporary, it's false. It may be illusory, that illusion may be real, but because it's temporary, it's false. Just like an example is there of someone who's sitting next to someone who's dreaming of being eaten by a tiger, and in his dream he's calling out, "A tiger's coming to eat me, he's coming to eat me," but the person sitting next to him is trying to reassure him, "No, it's okay, it's only a dream, it's only a dream." So this is the Krishna's position, in that we're in this dream-like existence in this material world, and he's there as the super soul. He's there. He comes in so many ways to reassure us that what we're experiencing in this body is just a dream, and what he's giving it in his showing in his past transcendental pastimes, that as the reality. And so in the big Bhagavad Gita, he said so many times, don't worry, don't be in anxiety, just depend on me. So this is, can also be, there's the other example also, how there's two birds in a tree, and one is eating the fruits and one is just watching. So the one eating the fruits is the living entity trying to enjoy in the material world, and the other bird just witnessing it is the super soul. And he's waiting for that soul to one day turn to him and take his direction, so that he'll be able to come out of this illusion. So what covers us is just our perception, our state of consciousness. Like the sun, it's always there, but when the sun is covered by clouds, we say the sun isn't out today. But the sun is there, it's just covered by the clouds. So similarly, Krishna's always there, but due to our faulty perception, filtered by the mind, intelligence, ego in absorbed in matter, then we don't see Krishna. We don't see how he's working in this material world, how he's everywhere. So this is the material. This is the whole of existence. That there's either Maya or Krishna, and we're conscious of Maya being under the influence of the modes of material nature in this body, having to tolerate happiness and distress, heat and cold, and bewildered by what's going on in that regard, and then by the hearing Krishna's words, and in Sastra and coming from Guru, so the sadhus, then the soul has a chance to be elevated to know, and it all starts with who am I. So to attain this, to really imbibe this consciousness of that we're the spirit soul, not this body. It's a constant. We have to constantly remind ourselves, and and also that we're eternally a loving servant of Krishna. And then be in this way. Try to endeavor to see how the Krishna behind everything. And then this world is no longer the material world, it's the spiritual world, once we make that connection. So once the soul is fully dependent on the Lord, then the dualities may be there, but they're easily overcome by his desire to do what pleases Krishna. And in this way, then happiness and distress can be kind of unwanted interruptions in that endeavor to please Krishna. If one is focused that way and gives one attention, like Mahatma Prabhu was saying this morning in the japa affirmations, how whatever we can control the mind, the control of the mind comes by whatever we give our attention to. So if we're giving attention to our comforts, our trying to avoid things that could cause us to some distress, I mean, naturally that can be there, but but if it means to, if it pleases Krishna, then we have to face those distresses. If it pleases Krishna, we have to be careful not to become too elated by any happiness, lest it makes us forgetful of Krishna. So sometimes we don't take dreams in general very seriously in Krishna consciousness, but they can be used by the Supersoul to award us our karma, and like it to instead of like we may have a nightmare or some horrific dream, so that's the Supersoul giving us our karma in the form of a dream rather than having it in waking life. And it can also be predictive or like an omen. Like one volunteer was telling me recently how she, before the pandemic, she couldn't understand why, but she was just having these dreams of just loads of coffins everywhere. And she couldn't understand why. And then when she heard of the pandemic and the effect of it, then it was obviously an omen. Another devotee, he was asked to just move to the temple. Why not join the temple and give it a go? And he had these continuous nightmares for about a week, and really horrific stuff. He was saying, blood and all sorts. And the devotee said, that's what you would have had if you hadn't have moved into the temple, because the association of the persons he was in wasn't one of the kind of very low mode. So Krishna works in mysterious ways. Also, dreams may come about by the types of food we eat. If we take bhoga that's being prepared by very sinful persons, then it can definitely affect the mind and the body sometimes. It says how Lord Chaitanya says how it can make the mind wicked. So then caution there. So just as a dream has no factual existence, then it's considered like a hallucination. So similarly, our detachment from Krishna is also an hallucination. It says how those who are too bewildered by sense enjoyment and out of attachment, they can't take to devotional service. So they're living in a dream without any aim in life, and not knowing what's coming after death, and just living like death isn't going to come, like Maharaj Yudhisthira. He said, he was asked what was the most wonderful thing in this world. And his answer was that, he said, every day so many people are dying, their parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents, everyone, they see how everyone eventually comes to a point where they have to leave this world, but the living entity still lives in such a way that he won't die. He doesn't think he will die. So we're fortunate to be able to know how to be given instruction of how to become attached to Krishna, and in this way gain our real life in Krishna consciousness. And in this way we can experience how so-called happiness and distress, happiness that comes from like the mode of goodness and knowledge and so on, that's not the be-all and end-all. It's when one can actually make that connection to Krishna. It's said how, let's say that. So there's three levels of consciousness. Jagrata, which is the awakened state, and Swapna, the dreaming state, Susupti, deep sleep. And beyond them is the Turiya, which is non-material, in transcendental consciousness. And then for the devotee, there's a fifth one described, which is Turiya Tita, the dimension of love between the Jiva and the Krishna. So is there any comments or questions? Anyone may have?
I have a question. You said in the Shastra, it says that this material world is temporary, it means it's false. How would that to me, I think that yes, it is false because it's an illusion, but it's still exists, so therefore it's not false, it's not completely false because it's still there. Could you explain that on that one, please?
Well, it's false due to its temporary nature. It comes and goes, and it's just like a memory. It has no long-lasting existence. It's anything that's real, according to Shastra, is that which is sanatana, or eternal. Like this body that we have is considered false because it's temporary in existence. It's real, but at the same time, because it doesn't last very long, it's just eventually it's nothing. It just emerges back into the earth, and it has no existence at all. It's the wise have ascertained that which is non-permanent, the body, and that which is permanent, the soul. That's spiritual.
It's in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 15, Krishna says, Nasato vitate bhavo nivava vitate satavyo pratishram chastranyos chatashavi. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the material there is no existence, and of the eternal there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. So it's interesting that it says in that verse, basically Krishna says that the material energy doesn't exist, it has no existence, which is an unusual statement. And it's really because the English language doesn't have sufficient precise words to describe the nature of reality. And whereas Sanskrit is a language that was composed to be able to express very deep and specific understanding of the nature of reality. So when Krishna says that the material energy doesn't exist, he means that it's in constant flux. So what we see as being something, like modern sort of scientists, quantum scientists, they know this, or at least they think they know, but they've got some idea that anything, what appears to be solid and appears to be stable, actually isn't stable, it's constant, it doesn't actually exist. But because we exist, because the spirit soul is eternal and has reality, because we're actually eternal. So we impose our concept of eternality onto things which we perceive with our imperfect senses as being stable. So because our senses are limited, we can't see that everything is going through change constantly. So we see that table as just being like something that has continuous existence, because our perception is faulty. We can't see how it's constantly changing at every moment. And so it's because of our incorrect perception that we see it as having existence. And it's also because we do exist. So it's interesting, because the scientists also have imperfect vision, and all of their instruments, all of the instruments that the scientists use to examine the material world, they're also imperfect because they're based on imperfect senses. So therefore they only measure things, they generally just measure things which they consider as material, composed of material elements. And although some scientists acknowledge that material things don't really have any reality, but in their daily practice, they behave as if it is real, especially when it comes to their body. But it's very strange that the very thing which is real, which is the spirit soul, because they don't have any means to study it, then they say that it has no real existence, the spirit soul. Or at least that they can't, there's so much disagreement over what consciousness is. They have no means to actually really understand consciousness, and therefore they describe it as something impersonal and basically something which is constantly changing. So we, and also because we haven't come to that platform of self-realization, we haven't really come to that. Although we do have glimpses of our consciousness being eternal and stable, but in general we don't perceive ourselves, the spirit soul, as being eternal and other things as being temporary. But because we are actually stable, and therefore we kind of impose our that reality onto other things around us. So it's very difficult to actually to really realize what Chad Barrett is saying here. But the more we study it, the more we read it, the more we discuss it, the more we try to use examples and analogies, and the more we'll be able to act upon it. Which is the important thing. That even if we can't perceive it, but if we can act upon that understanding, then that's the important thing. But anyway, it's I couldn't understand that verse for like years and years and years. And like, I'm not saying I understand it now, but it takes a lot of study, reading, studying and discussing.
And Prabhupada says it doesn't even take a second to revive our Krishna consciousness as long as we follow the rules and regulations and take advantage of Guru such a process of devotional service, especially hearing and chanting. And that's why that japa period is so important, because you've got nothing else to do but think of Krishna. And so that's our practice, and the more we absorb ourselves, then the more we find we'll remember Krishna during the day. Especially when it's a prayerful mood, one of yearning, or even if one has a difficulty, then returning to Krishna to help you through it. Whichever way the mind is going, you can always direct it back to Krishna, because we're depending on him for everything. So try to have that mood today. Shall we remind each other of Krishna, and we do Bandharada Sos, we'll have a consciousness of how, like Prabhupada was saying yesterday, a mood of trying to improve our service for Krishna's pleasure. And we're so fortunate being in the temple, so that everything around us is reminding of Krishna, and to take advantage of that, so that every day is a step forward closer to him. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, thank you very much for that illumination there. And it's you said very briefly what I took a long time to say. That it's actually only by acting in devotional service that we can gain the understanding, because that's actually our nature. So we can't understand it just by thinking about it. It's only by acting in that. It's only by acting in our constitutional position that we can understand our constitutional position.
Well, that's why Prabhupada's gift books and the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, as far as I remember, they're the only two things that he has established by law, so that the association of devotees would be protected, that they could have somewhere to come together, and also the books that they would have the BBT Trust and so on. Can we stop there? Thank you for your attention and participation. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Address from the devi, dasi
Jai.
Are there any questions from you?